Okay, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are just finishing off with your question, if you don't mind, do press submit on it, so let the AI go work on your question for a little bit. In the meantime, as promised, I told you we'll give people a short grace period. If they're not here, it's really not fair to keep you and I waiting. We should start accordingly, okay? So I will start, and if we are interrupted by people along the way, we'll just deal with it, okay? So first things first, thank you for taking time off your busy work schedule to be here. My name is Manoj. I'm the CEO of a company called Castro, right there. And I'll be spending about an hour or so with you here today to talk about artificial intelligence for HR tech specifically. Now, maybe what I'll do is this gives you a little bit of a framework of the work that we do when it comes to HR tech. So I'll talk you through this, and I'll go back and give you a bit more of an overview of the company because HR tech is not the only thing that we do. Okay? So when it comes to HR tech, our whole value proposition is to be able to help people in organizations reduce the work that they do by up to 80% if not more. Okay? And as you will see as I demonstrate some of the tools to you, in some cases it's going to be reducing work by 90% in that regard. Now that's a very significant saving for people to have. So we tend to take a look at, now originally we were a customer journey company when we first started off. I started off with a background in the Walt Disney Company. So obviously customer experience is something that is very dear to me. I then spent about 2.5 years with a stint with a technology startup here in Singapore that was sold off for a very nice amount of money. This was during the dot-com period. Then I spent 10 plus years as a management consultant specializing in organizational development, professional development work. Now all these different experiences I've gone through throughout my career obviously were incorporated into what you see here. So the challenge really started when I'm doing management consultancy work. So you often go in and talk to a CEO, you talk to a head of HR, you talk to a head of customer experience, someone from marketing department, and they want you to come up with some intervention to help them solve some organizational problem. So you bring your experience, your expertise, you listen to the challenges and problems that they have, and you create some form of intervention. Now I did that for more than 10 years, right? And after a while, I started to become increasingly frustrated at the work that I was doing. And the reason was not because we were not doing a great job, we were doing an excellent job, we were getting a lot of accolades for it. I started to get frustrated because the organization that I was working with did not have data. Now, at that particular point in time, most people weren't even thinking in these terms yet. So I thought the ideal scenario would be, when I go in there, they want me to improve something when it comes to, let's say, service standards of the organization. Instead of me just hearing the CEOs and the HR person and the head of service point of view, I always wanted to say, do you have data? And the answer was no. And I felt, why are they not collating data? So I thought it would be really good if they collated some data over an ongoing basis, not just over a 1 month basis, just once in 12 months sort of a deal. They kept that particular data, the data spoke, the CEO spoke, whoever was in charge of that particular department spoke, and I spoke. And then between that, we could come up with some kind of intervention that actually was a lot more accurate as an intervention. And post the intervention, wouldn't it be great if they could then go and re-measure and see what was the efficacy or the return on investment on actually doing that intervention and keep this data set ongoing in the process. And what I found is most companies in Singapore, one, were not collating data. Two, actually nobody had actually built the technology the way I thought the technology as a consultant needed to be built in that regard. Now, not just a consultant, but also a practitioner, right? Because I was working before I was doing the consultancy teams. And that was actually the genesis of Castro. So originally when we started, we were doing customer journey analytics, simply because of that background. I felt this was a big gap. Then what we realized is, actually, when we are collating this intelligence, we had built a platform to not just collate intelligence on customer experience. We had built a platform to collate intelligence on any sort of experience or intelligence. So what we did is, we go onto the homepage of our website, you realize, you will see that we've applied it to 3 different areas. One is market research. Second, of course, is customer experience. And the third is employee engagement or HR tech. Now, we found ourselves in a very interesting situation thereafter. Because normally, if you want to do something for HR tech, you go and see a HR consultancy. Okay? You want to go do something for customer experience, you'll go see a totally different consultancy. You want to do work for market research, you'll end up seeing someone else. Nobody had built a platform in which organizations could do all 3 things on the same platform. Now, that also has got very big implications. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'll just give you an overview first. Because one of the things most organizations want to be able to correlate, and they simply cannot correlate, is what does my employee engagement have to do with my customer experience? that correlation simply doesn't exist at all in that regard, right? Now, I won't name names of big consultancies, but if I did, it would get actually a little bit embarrassing in that regard because it's all separated out, there's no correlation. Now, having said that, I'm going to focus on HR tech at the moment. Why? We were recently appointed by Enterprise SG as a HR tech partner with them, and most organizations in Singapore can get a 50% grant to improve their HR tech capabilities. So let's take a look at the area of HR tech alone. So in the same way, when we took a look at customer journeys, we realized actually there was a talent journey in an organization. A very interesting thing. So when we took a look at talent journey, we realized actually there were 3 phases of that talent journey. One, there's a recruitment, attraction, or selection phase. Getting the right talent into the organization. Please do come and grab a seat. You'll be standing for a very long time if you stand there. So that's the recruitment, attraction, and selection phase. The second phase then becomes an empowerment or engagement phase, where you've already brought the employee to the organization. There's a whole bunch of intelligences you need to capture and get. The third phase then becomes what we call a growth or development and potentially even exiting people out of the organization phase. And exit is not always a bad thing. Sometimes the right amount of churn is actually a good amount of churn. So with that, what we did is we mapped out the entire thing. And what you're seeing here on this particular diagram is about 17 different methodologies for each one of those phases. But the truth is, behind the scenes, we have a lot more than 17. I can only put a limited number over here. So what I'll be doing with you shortly is I'll actually be demonstrating to you the technologies from each one of these particular phases. Now obviously, when I mean each one of the phases, I can't demonstrate 17 things to you. We'll be here all night. So I'll cherry pick a couple of different things at different stages and then demonstrate to you so you can be active participants in it. And those of you who were here early, that QR code and URL that I showed you earlier, you hopped onto it and you asked a particular question. I'll demonstrate something else that we have built, which is looking like the world's first at the moment. We built something called an AI consensus engine. It's able to read qualitative data in real time and then map that qualitative data in a very smart algorithm and tell us what is the consensus among the group of people on any particular question or topic that's asked. And then we allocate percentages to this particular thing. So what we've done is, in simple terms is, we may have just ended up quantifying qualitative data. And that's a really big leap forward. And if we were not using some AI APIs and the algorithms we built on top of it, that simply would not have been possible at all. So hopefully you ask some questions and I'll be able to showcase that to you in that respect. So far, what I'm saying makes sense to you? Okay, great. So let me get rid of this and let me jump into here. So if you hop onto our website, you will actually find we've actually built entire frameworks and we've given organizations a whole educational spiel as to why these areas are important. Now obviously, since I'm here together with you, I won't be referencing that particular website. It's better that we just communicate and we speak. Okay? So this information is there for you to preview anytime you feel like doing it. What I will do is I'll explain how the platform itself works. So everything that we do is hosted on a cloud platform. Okay? So we have a domain, castro.com, and when we work with a particular client, we build a domain for them on our domain. So let's say, for example, if it's A-star, so it will be a-star.castro.com. Okay? Now when you hop onto this particular domain, within the platform itself, you'll notice there are 117 different templates that we built in there. Now one of the other problems we noticed or observed, or actually which was a very it was expensive cost process was, anytime an organization wanted to do an initiative, they need to develop a methodology. And what they needed to do to develop a methodology is go see a consultant. Now if you went to a consultant, a McKinsey, a Bain & Co, you name whoever you want to name, and you said, I want to develop a methodology to get intelligence on my end-to-end talent journey. That's going to cost you about $300,000 US to start with. So that becomes a very expensive expense and it takes you a few months to get that done itself. What we've actually done is we've built in excess of $2 million US worth of methodologies on the platform itself. So everything for HR tech, for customer experience, for market research, and a whole bunch of things for specific industry niches. So for example, patient experience for hospitals, okay? Guest experience for hotels. So the methodologies are there built into it. So when you work together with us and you hop onto a domain, and depending on what you want to do with us, all you will need to do is hop onto the platform and type in something like employee. And what you'll find is there are 20 different templates that take a look at all those different things that I showed you across the talent journey. Okay? Now just blow this up here for you so you can see it a little bit more clearly. So everything from employee 360 feedback, background authentication, coaching, employee dialogues, onboarding, interview process, feedback, exit interviews, employee engagement, and you get a picture on it. Okay? Now how it works is this. So let's say, for example, if you wanted to do something at the start of a talent journey, okay? And you wanted to do something on job application. Let me just find that if I can. Yeah, so employee job application, which is the start of the talent journey. All you need to do is click onto one of these templates, and it will take you to a template preview. In the template preview, you, the person within the structure of the organization, can preview, is this the template that I need? Now this would be for job applications, right? So as you look through it, you'll go, yeah, that's the template that I need to be able to attract people for jobs. Next stage would then be for you to build it. Now, while I talk about this, maybe I'll give you a little bit of a sense as to the problems when it comes to people applying for jobs. Let's look at the structural issue here. This system of job applications and recruitment, please don't mind me saying, is completely broken. You take a look at the typical process in which an organization hires someone. They'll put up a job advertisement on a job site somewhere. Why? Because that's where the fish are. Right? So the organization has to go over there. They'll give a whole write-up about the organization, the background, the job scope, what they're looking for. And this is all that's fine. The error starts with putting an email address there. Because what happens next is this, everybody applying for a job sends their jobs via email. The problem with this is the emails are now distributed all over someone's inbox. Now imagine you're the recruitment person who's hired to recruit someone. You now have to go through, let's say, 100 resumes for one particular job, and then sometimes it's just a small number, sometimes the numbers are significantly larger. From a human perspective, we don't have total recall. I don't care how intelligent we are. You simply can't remember all the nuances in relation to it. So that already kickstarts a very biased process of attempting to hire someone. So that's problem number one. Problem number two becomes resumes, and we've all been through this process, is the way the potential candidate is marketing themselves. True? We want to be able to showcase ourselves in the best light, and there's no reason for why we shouldn't. The problem is, that's not how the way the organization hires. When organizations hire, when you analyze it and take a look at it, they're actually hiring for three things. One, they're hiring for a job fit. Two, they're hiring for a cultural fit. Three, they're hiring for a salary fit at minimum. And resumes are a very poor way to do that. So what did we do? We took the whole process and we turned it on its head to make sure it works out well for the employee as well as the employer. So what did we do? We built a methodology for it. Okay? Now, in the interest of time, I won't get into all the nuances in relation to it. But this then becomes, you can come in here, you can customize this. So let's say Intuitive decides they want to be able to use this. You can, anything in blue, you can change it. You can change the image up here to represent your brand. You can put in your logo. You can put in your demographic details on the back end of it. You can rewrite your spiel on how you want to culturally communicate your organization to the potential employee. Right down to what your criteria for hiring is. Because a lot of times the employee gets mistreated. They just send stuff in, but they've got no idea how they're being evaluated in that regard. Then thereafter, we ask for a whole bunch of demographic details. Now you can ask for details, for example, for which country are you a citizen of? Which country are you presently working in? Okay? Which country are you seeking to apply for a job with us in? Because some organizations may be geographically distributed. Then a whole bunch of demographic details. Now all of these things are already pre-built into the system. Now then from here, once the demographics are done, you can then get into the type of employment that people are seeking. Okay? You can get into what is the expected remuneration. Now I'll take the time to point out the remuneration problem here. Another big problem we've observed in the hiring process is this. After I look through those resumes in a biased way, I bring people into the interview, I sit down there, I interview them. People sit down and talk for 45 minutes to almost an hour, and then they get into, so how much do you want in salary? And then they find either it matches, but in most cases, the salary expectations don't match. Now the problem with this is if you interview 60 people, there's 60 hours of work being put into interviewing that may not materialize in anything. So to assist with the matchmaking process right up front, we ask the potential employee, and we give them a $500 range to work with, what is the potential salary that you want? And you will see later how the analytics of the back end, this becomes an important criteria to factor things into. And then a whole bunch of other demographic details, right? What are the core competencies? We even, when are you available to start, we even profile people by personality. Okay? Ivan, I know you and me were talking about this a little bit. And that's also very important. Why? Because we want the right person, based on the personality fit, to fit into the right job. Okay? It's not just a competency issue. And then a whole bunch of other questions you can ask. Now, as an afterthought and not as a primary thought, we still allow them to put in their cover letter and their resumes. And you will notice those will be referred to later, not as the primary source of how things get done. So once you've created, so the methodologies we provide them, organizations can further customize them if they want to, okay? Depending on what criteria that are critical. Now the other thing is this, in the interest of saving time, we also, in that particular methodology, ask some questions that you would typically ask when the person turns up for an interview, right? Are you a high performer? What are your extracurricular activities that you do? And one typical question gets asked all the time, why should we hire you ahead of everyone else? Okay? Now you don't need to waste time doing this in interviews. This can actually be done pre-interview process. Now I'm also very mindful as I'm showcasing this to you. Some of you may be going, but you know chatbots do some of these things. The reality is, yes they do, but show me a chatbot that actually functions the way it's supposed to function, and you will win you win some sort of prize for it. They just don't function the way they're supposed to function. And furthermore, on the back end of it, they don't have an analytics engine the way you would want to analyze the data thereafter. So that technology is just not mature yet. So what we're doing is kind of like a combination, but we're doing it in a more human way where people are more cognizant of what they're pulling together. Now once all of this is done, then in the system you click on to save, and a whole bunch of new things will then open up. So you'll notice it here. By the way, I'm doing a live demo here, so if things do slow down, I'm at the mercy of the internet. Please be kind to me on that note. So now you'll see things like theme will turn up over here. You can then theme this to your entire brand in that regard. You can preview what you want. So the whole thing looks like it's your brand, it's your website. Okay, which is very important, I think, when you're giving a first impression to a potential talent. You can preview it and then you can publish the data. Now publishing, we've actually made some very nice innovations over here. The first thing when it comes to publishing URLs, oftentimes you will see it, you will see these URLs being sent out, long squiggly list of unsightly looking things. With us, the way we work on it is, you can actually create a vanity URL, right? So let's say job application analytics, if you wanted to. And if that's not taken on the system, you'll be able to create a vanity URL directly. Then when you publish it, and I'll just click on that, you will notice a couple of things are going to turn up here. QR codes, URLs, embedding codes, which allow you to then embed this into your website, where your job application itself is. You can embed it into your chatbots, you can embed it into your mobile applications. There are about 15 different channels for propagating this. If not that, if you want to post directly from the system to Facebook, Twitter, Google+, LinkedIn, Buffer, Reddit, and so on and so forth, you can do that. Now, underneath this, you may actually notice other things like Africa, America, Brazil, Canada, so on and so forth. Now, I'll explain that to you briefly, and I'll come to it in more depth later. When we built the tool that we built it for large global enterprises. Now, one of the problems is, and I'll explain it to you, and then you'll understand how we've applied this to this. Imagine Ritz-Carlton came to us and says, I want to do customer experience analytics, and I want to do it for my whole global organization. Right now, there's 62 Ritz-Carltons around the world. You know how they're functioning on customer experience? Each one of the localized teams will be looking to some agency or consultancy to measure customer experience for them. They may be trying to create some kind of a uniform methodology, but the reality is the system is not uniform. But with us, what you can then do is you can create one uniform methodology, whether it's for customer experience, HR, whatever the intelligence you want to collate. You can build something called hierarchy, okay, which is your entire global distributed organization. You can launch that methodology, and everybody around the globe gets the exact same methodology to use. Okay? So that's what hierarchy over here is. So it gets distributed globally. Now, once you're done with all of that, there are a couple of other functionalities in the system, and I'll just talk you through some of this, because then I won't have to repeat them thereafter. Then you have a database of people that you want to be able to reach out to. You can use our functionality to create email templates and send the data out directly to them with reminders, second reminders, and completion dates. Now, this helps you a lot with your administration work to be be able to pull in stuff. Now once that is done, of course, then data turns up in the analyze module. Now what I'll do is, I'll show you over here a real life demo of how this information actually takes place. Now what I'm showing you is real life data that we have been using for close to 2 years now. Okay, naturally I can't show you client data. So similarly, the way you will create the job application piece, we've created one for ourselves. Okay, so this is actually ours. So you go to our homepage on the website, underneath that button, there's something called jobs. From jobs, if you click onto it, this will be the URL it will come to. Now all of this is completely responsive, which means anybody can do it on any particular device. So they can take out their mobile device, scan a QR code, get working on it immediately. So this is a write-up about us. Okay, so it gives them a background about us. This is what we hire for, what does it actually mean, and then so on and so forth. We even give a diversity write-up over here, right? How we actually hire based on people's diversity. So people end up filling in these sort of questions. One of the things that we have done on our platform, which is not necessarily part of the core methodology, is we even ask people for their salary details, their pay slips. Okay? So we get a sense as to what their present salary is in that regard. So, and why we don't want to be taken for a ride as well. Expected remuneration, a whole bunch of questions, when they want to start, personality profiling, cover letter resumes, and then of course some of the questions you would typically ask in an interview. Now what happens when this data comes in on the back end is, all this data turns up, and you don't need to export data out of our system. One of the problems we saw with a lot of organizations was, people will get analytics, then they'll export it out in Excel, then they'll convert it to pivot tables and PowerPoint thing, and then they'll try to make sense of the data. Or use Tableau, even worse still, to get that sort of information done. We build all the tools directly into it. So with every new data set that comes in, so this is real data, 1,511 people across 23 questions have applied for a job for us from the 26th of May to the 22nd of May today in the last 2 years. That's a lot of people. We even track right down to the interactions, the visits, percentage of completes, average time, which IP addresses they come in, right down to the devices that they use. Now this gives us peripheral data to then determine where adoption is coming from as well, for the technological development of the product itself. Now, then when you come to demographics, you can literally see all the names and all the details of everybody, plus where they're actually applying for jobs from us from, so we know which website we should be spending more money on to attract the right sort of talent. Which countries they're a citizen of, everything gets graphically represented here. Now, right down from core competencies and so on and so forth. Now, here now becomes the next big time saver. So when you're trying to figure out which talent to hire, this is how the system works. So, there's something here, I'll just show it to you, called add to filter. Okay? You see that thing called add to filter? So whatever you want to be able to filter down from, you simply add it to a filter. What happens is, the filter will open up here on the right hand side. So based on the filter, I can then determine the sort of candidate I want to be able to invite in for an interview. So in this case, I've chosen, do you have a track record for being a high-performing, delivering top-quality work under challenging deadlines and fluid team-based environments? I'm obviously looking for people who say yes to this question. Okay? Which of the following personalities best describes you? Now, you will see shortly, I'm looking for a software programmer. And software programmers, one of the traits that you really need from them is the ability to be perceptive, to go into research, to find out things, and then to be able to develop stuff. So I've chosen a personality that's conducive to that. Here, what sort of salary range is the person expecting? So I may have a budget anywhere between 4,000 to 5,005, depending on the right sort of candidate. So I'm putting in the budget that I have. Okay? For someone who's open to a full-time or a contract job as a software developer, looking for someone between the age of 21 to 30, a millennial type, because I want the latest knowledge and know-how, not something a little bit more archaic. And then with a degree or a master's degree in that particular regard. Now the moment I click apply over here, what happens here is this. I go from 1,511 people to 9 people that actually meet my criteria. Now think about the time saving that just took place there. Okay? Now from that, the next stage that I'll take a look at is, then I'll go to, for example, the qualitative questions that I ask. Because from here, for these 9 people, I now want to be able to get a sense as to linguistic ability. How do they articulate on the things that I would normally do in an interview? And after, and only after I've done all of this, I will then go to their cover letters and their resumes, which are attached over here. So if I click onto one of these particular things, it will open up and it'll show me the entire verbatim of this particular individual. Just in case I want to analyze and see other components about this person that my filtering did not get me down to. Now this is how we kickstart the whole AI for HR tech component, the talent journey part. Now the time saving from this, I'm not joking about it, it reduces for organizations reading through resumes by 91%. Okay? It reduces time spent in interviews by 80% because you're not interviewing a whole bunch of people that you really don't need to interview. It even goes down to reduce. Sorry. Can we get one of the ladies on the other side? Geraldine? It's fine. Okay. The moment you mention the name, everything becomes okay. So it reduces time on a whole bunch of things quite tremendously. Okay? Now, even in the system itself, the next stage will then be, so after you've interviewed someone and narrowed it down, you still may want to do a further assessment. So we've built into the platform an ability for you to do assessment tools itself. Now this again does this, if you are looking for people to come remotely, they can't always come down to one location to be interviewed. Now again, I'm going to show you a live example, okay? I'm looking for an executive assistant for myself, okay? Because I desperately need one. Now what I've done over here is, I asked myself a simple thing. What are some of the typical things I'll be asking for an interview with an executive assistant to further narrow people down? So I created that in our platform as a questionnaire. Now one of the critical questions is this, so I wanted to understand a little bit, when it comes to your character, what do you guarantee? Okay, a little bit more of a probing question. I wanted them to be able to tell me, do they understand our business? Can they articulate what we do in their own words? I want to get a sense as to business acumen. Then this would be a typical task an executive assistant would be given to do. So I created an assessment directly into it. We're looking to open up an office in Chennai, just to give you a sense. We've already identified the location, so we already know the domain and the groundwork on it. But just hypothetically, we asked the person, listen, we're looking to open up an office in Chennai. Imagine this task was given to you. These are the criteria that we're looking for. Tell us what of these offices, co-working spaces meet our criteria. And then we want to see how they think through, and if this was something they present back, how would they present it back? Now I sent this out to about 100 odd people, okay, who applied for jobs. 60 something of them gave me responses to it. This is what the responses will start to look like, okay, in that respect. So if I come in here, there's 63 people who responded to this. Now obviously, I'm not going to hire 63 people, I want the best of the best. So what do I then do? I then go into and start looking at their qualitative responses. And this actually becomes a very critical question, because this shows me, if I give them a task, how they perform on the task. Now, so remotely, I can then read through their responses and determine who has actually responded to this particular answer the best. And from there, I can then narrow it down from 63 people to maybe 5 people that I really want to be able to interview because I know they can perform when I give them a task to do. So that becomes post-job application to assessments. Now this process continues because after that, I need to do reference checks. Right? And reference checks usually are something that are outsourced to another agency to do. But in our platform using hierarchy, I can create for each insert. Let's say next part of the process, I'll show it to you. Okay? I narrowed down to 5 people that I really want. I've already interviewed 5 people. Okay? And then post that, I want these 5 people to, I want to get reference checks on them as my final step before I hire them. So what do? I go into the platform. I create a URL for each one of those particular individuals. I send that URL to the prospective talent. I tell them, get me 5 references, either a superior, a peer, a subordinate, a lecturer, a friend in that regard. Data comes in on the back end. I can remotely analyze the data and go do the reference checks, add up and match up. Now, this actually helps me just by demonstrating 3 different things to you. You're actually professionalizing the process of hiring people, okay? Using technology in your favor. Now, the other part is this. Sometimes as you go through this particular process, you may actually end up hiring nobody because they don't meet the criteria. And that's the other part which a lot of people talk about but never really enforce. Sometimes it's better to not hire anyone than to hire the wrong person in the organization. The search has to continue in that regard. So these are just 3 very simple examples of how we help with the recruitment phase. Okay? Now, anytime you have a question and you want to be able to ask me, because there's a lot of information I'm going to be sharing with you, that URL. So is everything that I'm saying making sense to everyone so far? Okay. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just
security.
Yes, please.
Yeah. What if someone just then, in that case, just get someone else to fill out something and they lie, and then you're just pretending and you miss the perfect candidate, and you have some like liar working for you.
Okay. So the reason why that's a good question, and I'll tell you right now concretely with hand on heart, it's very difficult to fool the platform the way we built it. Now I'll explain it to you because since we're talking about AI, right? Oftentimes when you look at chatbots, for example, a lot of AI, the AI is taking place in the black box. The AI is doing what it's doing, and you have no visibility over it. Agreed? So if I do a chatbot, so I say the AI to analyze my candidate and tell me which candidate I should be talking to. The problem with that is this is what the European Union is now getting into. So they're getting into passing a law called explainable AI. If you cannot explain to the person that you're getting to use the AI how the AI functions, the European Union doesn't want that AI to be in use. And the reason is why human beings are not aware as to what's going on. Now, the way we have built the platform is this, and this is very important to us as people, okay, and me as an individual. Our tagline is human intelligence enhanced by AI. We don't want AI to be on top of human beings. We want to do the groundwork and allow the human being to be on top of the AI. So when the final decision of who is getting hired through the process that I just showed you, the human being is in charge of it. The human being is making the final decision and decisions on this front. Now, why is that? Because you don't want to miss the perfect candidate. Okay? So your question is a very intelligent question. So we really paid attention to that particular factor. So now looking at this over here, just to give you a little bit of a sense, I've given you a sense of application, assessment. Evaluation is basically when, how do you evaluate a person when you bring them into a room for an interview. Oftentimes it's done on gut feel, and there's no record of how the evaluation takes place. And sometimes three people may be interviewing one person, so this allows us to give a score, and that score gets documented. Now this again is important for the Tripartite Alliance for Fair Practices, because you don't want people to not be employed because they don't meet an age criteria, for example. Okay? Or, a silver-haired generation, there might be a diversity component to it. So this allows you to, again, make your process very transparent and document it. Reference check, onboarding is the next piece. Now onboarding, think about this process up to this point here. This process may take 3 to 6 months depending on the candidate you're looking for. Then you hand the candidate over to a line manager. How do you know the line manager has onboarded that candidate properly? So we built a methodology for that too. Okay? So what the HR simply will do is they'll shoot out the URL to you, the employee. You fill in a whole bunch of details, information comes back directly to HR. HR then takes a look at it. If anything is amiss, they get in touch with the line manager and go, you notice these things are not done, please get it done. Let me know that they're done. You can go back to the system and plug it in and go, okay, that's complete. And that completes pretty much the recruitment phase. The next phase then becomes empowerment. And I'll explain to you what these terminologies here are one step at a time. Talent Pulse was not our idea. Okay? We oftentimes work with companies and then we hear really good ideas and then we build those ideas. One of the CEOs of the company came up to me and goes, Manoj, employee engagement is what I do once a year. Okay? At best, I can do it twice a year. How do I get a sense as to what's happening in my organization for the remainder of that 363 days? So we built a technology that we call Employee Pulse Surveys. Now what that does is this, it's a 2-question format. Anytime any employee with QR codes in different locations in the organization can take out their own mobile device, scan it, get into it, and answer 2 questions. The 2 questions are, what is your overall experience with us right now? It's a 0 to 10 rating. Why? Okay? And it be kept anonymous if needed to. Now what this does is, the information then comes in real time. Our AI engine will analyze that qualitative data, and the head of HR, the CEO, the head of the business development, whatever different teams that are, get a very good sense anonymously as to what's happening within the structure of their teams. Because then you can pay attention to things just in case you start losing good employees along the way. So that's what Talent Pulse is. The next thing is 360, and I'll just walk you through this and I'll show you some of the technology shortly. Next thing is 360. Now 360 is traditionally, we never did it for a large number of employees and organizations. Why? It was too costly. Why was it costly? Because it was consultant dependent. I needed a consultant and I would only do it for senior management, and then I would determine whether I want 5 people giving feedback on the senior management or 7 people, and there will be a cost attached to that. The way we have now built this technology, we can do 360 for every single individual in the organization, right down to the secretary or the receptionist, who oftentimes will also have blind spots of their own that need to be exposed. So I'll explain to you how the 360 mechanism works shortly. So that's 360. Appraisals is necessary, maybe on a quarterly basis, maybe on a half-yearly basis, definitely on an annual basis, where the person appraising and the person being appraised sit down, do an appraisal, and has this particular information documented. So we built a methodology for that. After that becomes employee engagement. I will demonstrate this to you. We've actually built an artificial intelligence report for employee engagement, which does what it takes consultant 2 months worth of work to do. With us, it gets done instantaneously. Okay? Now then again will be the ethical dilemma of, so now if you do all this work instantaneously, what happens to the consultant? Okay? The consultant does not lose a job. What we're forcing the consultant to do is, don't do the menial work that you spent 2 months doing. Let the data come in, use the data and do the better value-add work which the machine simply cannot do, which is the advisory work and the prescriptive work, or based on the data, what should I be doing? So that removes a whole bunch of time from consultants. So if HR consulting wants to work with us on our tools, we're happy to work with them too. So that's engagement. Then dialogue is basically a case of, I told you we built the AI engine, right? So once you get employee engagement data, the next thing is a whole bunch of people in the organization are analyzing the data will have a whole bunch of questions they want to ask. But they cannot go to each employee one at a time and start asking questions. It's too time-consuming a process. So this becomes what we call a weekly affair. So one of the government agencies in Singapore, the head of HR was quite smart about this. They came to us, they realized we had this technology, and she said, can I use your tool? I want to ask weekly questions to all my staff. Now the first question she asked, and I really like this question because we also learn things when we work with clients, right? She asked a very interesting question and a very soft question. She simply sent out an email that said, with a URL, what was your working experience with us like this week? Now, for the employee, all they did is, they filled in something on a mobile phone, whether they're sitting at the bus stop on a Friday evening as they were leaving work. What the employee didn't realize is, we have an AI engine on the back of it, reading through all this qualitative data and making sense of it. When this data came into this head of HR, she got a very clear sense, just by that one question, what was happening in the organization. From that, the next week, this is what she did then. Using the data from that, she then created another question to probe deeper and find out what are the issues that need to be addressed or examined. And dialogue has taken place on a week-to-week basis. We usually recommend every 2 weeks, ask a new question, and it creates a different form of engagement in a very soft way. And then Q&A, which you're going to see shortly, is something called state of the organization, which I don't want to talk about because it'll take me too much time to explain. So now what I'll do is I'll give you a demonstration of how our technology is used from an empowerment standpoint. Okay. Yeah, by the way, this is our blog. So some of the things that I've spoken about, I've actually written a blog post on. So if you want to find out more about the recruitment piece, for example, there's a blog post here. Is this the reason why some organizations are struggling to grow? You can read it, it gives you all the details in and around it, okay? And how the system works. So this will be an example of a 360-degree feedback. So again, the methodology is already there, you can customize it. Now some of the questions in the feedback are what we call benchmark questions. We usually encourage organizations not to change the benchmark questions because they may want to see how they benchmark outside of the organization in that regard. Okay? So this will be a methodology to it. The next phase will be to actually set it up. Now this is what we call hierarchy here. I can actually on my hierarchy system build a hierarchy for each individual that is partaking in the 360 methodology. And for each one of them, there'll be a separate URL for a superior to fill in data, peer to fill in data, subordinate, customer, and self-assessment for all of that. Now what will then happen is this. We will then generate QR codes or URLs, and each individual will get a specific QR code. So let's say, for example, Brandon Chu has to get feedback, right? There'll be one particular URL that may go to a customer. one particular URL will go to the superior, one particular URL goes to a peer. When all the data comes in on the back end, in real time, this is what will take place. The administrator in the organization will be able to see, okay, 25 people have responded, there were 88 questions in the question set. Here, you'll be able to benchmark and see this is the average for the rating for the whole organization. Which individual outperformed, underperformed that particular benchmark. So the benchmarking is built directly into it. Plus the distribution and some qualitative data over here. I'll talk about this qualitative data and the AI engine towards the last part of my presentation today. So all the information comes in real time depending on the dimensions that you're taking a look at. So anytime you click on one of these things, you'll start to see the data being represented there. Now, here you can then slice the data by demographics. So for example, what if I wanted to, so we anonymize some data at this particular level, okay? But what if I wanted to only see data for this particular individual, let's say Amber Black. Okay. What if I wanted Amber Black, an individual, to see her own report as to how she's performing? So by going to the right filter over here, I can zoom this in, I can apply to a filter, and what takes place over here is Amber now has a login into the system where she can see her own data. Now this becomes very useful. Why? Because I don't want to delay the process of data comes in, consultant generates a report. Consultant then takes 3 weeks to generate a report, and if there are 350 people in the organization, good luck. Okay? It doesn't work. Immediately she's able to log in, she can see her report onto it. Now in her report, she'll be able to see things like how did she perform overall? What was the average rating? Did she exceed it? Did she fall short of it? This information that you're seeing over here is written by a machine, it's not written by a human being. This is what I meant by all the initial work for a consultant, we just get it done instantaneously with every new data set that comes in. Huge time saver. Then she can go into each particular one of those metrics and see how did her superior, how did the peer, how did the customer rate her on it. Now what this does is this, you know medical records? There's now a big case being put forward of why is it that you and I don't have access to our own medical records? Okay? Same thing for employees in organization, isn't it? Why don't I have access to my own employee records? That becomes an important criteria. Because it's not my boss or someone else telling me what is important and what needs to be done. Why shouldn't I self-analyze my own performance and see where things need to change? So it's a very radical shift in an approach. So she can now come in here and take a look at all this data. The other beautiful thing is this, we've built something called summary views. She can go in here and see an overall summary of all the data at the top, right from where she has performed the best to where she has performed the worst, instantaneously. Okay? Her boss as well, if necessary, can be given access to this information, so the boss can also see how to be able to assist her. Head of HR can take a look at the data and to see what sort of development programs this individual may need to go into thereafter. So this becomes a rating and ranking, so it tells you very clearly what they're doing well, what they're not doing so well on. This gives her an overview as to where she's performing well and where she's not. So immediately by looking at this, she knows overall those 5 or 7 people that rated her are telling her her time management is not so great. Okay? Just as an example. This gives her a sense too, based on all of them, who feels she's doing better or not doing better. Okay? So obviously, when it comes to a peer, her relationship with the peers don't look so great at the moment by simply looking at the color coordination here. Now the final thing, which I think is very, very useful, is something in here we built called a correlation engine. Let me blow this up for you. The correlation engine gives her a complete overview to everything, all the questions that were answered. So by looking at this, she can tell a correlation between emotion, likability, ethics, traits, and focus. There's a positive correlation. She's doing well in these areas. But she's not doing so well when it comes to planning and time management. So that becomes a clear area of focus, so she knows strengths and weaknesses instantaneously. Now this can be done not just for 5 people, okay? Not just 10 senior management. I can literally do this for 1,200 people in the entire organization. And it's a completely democratic process. That's the other beautiful thing about it. Because I get access and I get to see my own data. So that will be an example of how we do 360 for HR Tech. Now this, what I'm about to show you next, is probably one of the creme de la creme of what we do. Okay? We invested a lot of time, effort and energy into this particular component. What I did not show you earlier when I was doing build was, within our system itself, we have the ability to translate a methodology from English into 105 other languages instantaneously. Okay? Now obviously you can't get a human being to do this stuff. Okay? So what happens over here is I can launch an employee engagement survey. I can be distributed geographically in different countries in the world. I may have people in Indonesia who want to do it in Bahasa Indonesia, people in Malaysia who are more comfortable with Malay. I may have employees in Singapore who are more comfortable using Chinese. Definitely, I'm going to China, they'll be more comfortable using simplified Chinese for that matter. I can do it in Tagalog, I can do it in every language sort of Klingon. So what happens is when people come into a URL, everything, the first default view is in English. But if they want to be able to do that in Chinese or Vietnamese, the whole thing instantly changes to that language. Now that's one part of the beauty of the system. The other part of the beauty of the system is, once they answer all the questions, it doesn't matter what language they answer the questions in, the moment they submit, when it goes to analyze, all of that information gets retranslated back into English in real time. Now that, again, as you can see, my consumption oftentimes is the time savings. That is a ridiculous amount of time just being saved on the platform. Now when the data comes in on the back end of it, what does it look like? This is what it will start to look like. And here, I'm now going to talk you through a little bit more of some of the AI reporting components within the structure. So by now, you're getting quite familiar to looking at how the analytics looks like. So when it comes to quantitative data, it's fairly straightforward. Okay? This is an example of personality profiling, and this I really would like to demonstrate it to you if I can. By asking them a personality question, I can map out my entire organization, what the personality mix in my entire organization is. Okay? So it's showcasing over here that the organization has a lot of people who fit this particular personality profile, the most, second and third. We've got an AI engine built into it directly that will also tell you these are the personalities that seem to be missing from your organization. Then further to that, because oftentimes you need to educate the person in the organization as to how personality impacts performance, we give them a write-up about each particular personality and what the traits of their personality are. Now what does this do for the organization? This then allows the people in the organization, the leaders of the team, because they all have access to their own particular data, to then determine when they're hiring new people, what sort of mix do I need in the organization to fit certain components because I may be lacking certain traits in the process. Now this sort of data, to give it down to the head of business development, to give it to the head of operations, to give it to the head of IT, or a manager leading a team of 5 people, simply was not there before. Okay? So it brings another dimension into the data that was completely missing. Now, on this employee engagement that I'm showing you, right? What if I wanted to be able to generate a report for employee engagement and I wanted to generate an individual report for Singapore? Now, this is a combined report. To generate an individual report, all I need to be able to do is hit add to filter, go to country, go to Singapore, decide I want to see what upper management and middle management thinks about a particular issue, click apply, the entire report in the center gets regenerated to Singapore in itself. Now, so coming over here, then of course in our overall analysis overview of things, we'll show you the ranking of dimensional strengths and weaknesses, the ratings, the heat maps for it, okay, choice heat maps, correlation heat maps, and a whole bunch of other peripheral data. Now this is how the AI for reporting works. Okay? Now I'll pause here a little bit because now I want to get into some form of Q&A for you, and then once we're done with the Q&A, we'll go have a nice bite and we can always talk at length socially in our own particular way. I was here a few months ago, in November specifically. I gave a talk on the future of work in the age of AI. Now instead of letting people ask questions one at a time in the room, because you can only take that number of questions at a time, we used our technology AI consensus for people to ask questions. Okay? So we send them the particular URL, they ask whatever question they want to be able to ask, and then the data comes in on the back end as such, together with the consensus engine. So to conclude today's particular presentation and talk, I'd like you to do the exact same thing. This is the URL, okay, which most of you already have in your thing. Feel free to go to that particular URL, intuitive.customer.com/Q for question. please ask me whatever question you want to be able to ask about my presentation, anything that I haven't covered in the presentation, any opinion as well you may have or anything. I'll give you about 3 minutes to do that. I'll show you your questions in real time as they come up on the screen and how the AI engine and consensus works. You'll see it right at the top. Okay. If not, if I switch the view to this, I'll see the questions as they're coming in. Now this also is important because you want to make sure democratically whatever question you ask actually turns up on the platform and the administrator is not taking things away unnecessarily. So I'll go back to this. So maybe what I'll do is the system will work on the back end, okay? Even though you're asking questions, I'll start addressing some of the questions. So as you can see, what takes place is this: the question turns up, the consent engine kicks in. You don't need to vote questions up or down, which is a very tedious process and it actually doesn't make any sense to anyone. We'll find the consensus, we just address questions accordingly, okay? So let's deal with that. So the question is by Lenny. What is your unique selling point compared to other competitors? There are lots of HR, AI companies in the USA and India which are also using machine learning and data analytics to help them in recruitment and engagement. Okay. Alright. So let me put it this way. What we find out there in the marketplace is there are companies attempting to do niche areas. There'll be one particular company doing only recruitment. Okay? And they'll be doing that to whatever degree they can do. There are very few companies, as a matter of fact, we haven't come across any particular company that does the entire talent journey. The recruitment phase, the empowerment engagement phase, the growth, the development phase on one particular platform. That makes us very, very distinct. If you look at the broader picture, we then take the HR data and measure together with employee engagement data, that makes us even more distinct. We don't fear competition, okay? Because the way we have architected our platform, whatever we find to be of value in a competitor's product, the architecture of our platform actually is very critical. We can actually incorporate that into it. So just to give you a little bit of a sense as to what are some of the things that are coming up next. You know the resumes that we pick up? We're now using machine learning to read through those resumes. Because we have extracted a certain amount of data the way the organization wants to see the data. There may be other valuable data in those resumes. We will then extract the data out, we will mesh it together with this and allow you to mine that data directly. So, not too concerned about competition. Competition simply teaches us how to further innovate. And our value proposition is we do the whole end-to-end. Now, why is that a big deal for organizations? It's a big deal for organizations because you really want to use one vendor for recruitment, another vendor for reference checks, another guy for 360, another guy for talent pulse, another guy to do dialogues for you, another guy to do employee engagement, another guy to do succession planning. The answer to that is absolutely no. Because you don't want to maintain 70 different vendors. The advantage of working with us is you work with one particular party. And once you get used to using the system, you're not even dependent upon us anymore. You understand how to use it, the innovation then lies with you. So that's how we address this particular, or tackle this particular issue. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Okay? So I'll just mark this as addressed, and then we'll go on to the next particular one. How can we ensure the data collected are well validated to remove bias? Okay. Javario? Yeah. What do you mean by this? If you don't mind articulating a little bit more.
It is always about prejudices,
Yes.
or bias. So we corrupt the data like that. So I'm not sure whether
So
you really track that.
So think of it with the present reality first. The present reality is ridiculously biased. And in the present reality, people can't even identify their biases. When we take it and we structure it, and we well articulate it, and then the data comes into the background and we make it transparent and we quantify it, actually what we're doing is we're removing about 90% of bias already. So that's the first thing that needs to be recognized. The second part to it is, after doing all of that, is there still bias? The answer to that also honestly is yes. Is bias based on the manner in which the question is asked or the assessment is done? But that bias compared to the existing bias is actually a huge reduction of bias in that regard. Now the other thing is, when you make the data transparent to a few different parties in the organization, their username, password to log into it, you tend to remove that bias further because you get checks and balances in place. So I think we're not creating bias while there's still some bias in it, we're actually removing a bulk of biases, which then becomes very critical to organizations because then they can do things with greater degree of integrity. Does that address the question? Thank you for asking it. Yeah, so this was addressed already. So, Velvetina, why don't you consider using analytics engines to process the qualitative responses as well? For example, you can look to filtering for keywords. This may help to streamline even more. That's precisely what we're doing.
I asked you that before.
Before I said it.
But do you use this for the selection phase as well? Is it because just now you showed it in the engagement phase, but the selection when you open it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I showed you, for example, the job application piece, towards the tail end, you could ask 3 qualitative questions, right? Which become open-ended responses. So the consensus also works on that. Now, having said that, in that context, consensus is not so important to you. You want the human being to be reading that particular data and quantifying and qualifying it. So you can then read through that, and depending on the responses that you like, if you click onto it, it then opens up that whole response for that individual, and you narrow down further to that individual. Okay? So again, I repeat, our purpose is to be able to put human beings on top of the value chain. Okay? So thanks for that great question. Okay? I'll take another 2 questions, and then we can always, by the way, whatever questions you ask, if I didn't get a chance to address them, don't worry about it, I will address them, because usually I will write a blog post based on the questions, and then because you're here, I'll send it off to Intuitive, and then you get the responses to it. How to assess the accuracy of the report? If we depend too much on the system, is there a danger of making the wrong decisions? Lim, you want to ask me to say a little bit more before I answer it? No? Okay. So we'd like to think that we are preventing people from making the wrong decisions. Okay? If you think about it, let's go back to just job application as an example. If I allow a human being simply to read through resumes and make a decision as to who to be able to bring in an interview based on a resume, that would probably be a wrong decision. Okay? If I'm allowing someone in an organization to make an assessment of employee engagement and leave it to the consultant to tell the organization what the organization should do, that may actually be the wrong decision. Why? Because the people within the organization have a better sense as to the dynamics of the organization and why certain things are appropriate or not appropriate. And now we're giving them the same data to be able to analyze at the same time. Now, what is this? What are we then endeavoring to do? We're endeavoring to move people up the value chain. Now, I'll give you an example I take away from typical HR, but it involves HR. Hotels in Singapore need to get staff, you need to redesign staff jobs for staff. Okay? Traditionally, staff, when it comes to, let's say, guest experience data, they don't get the data. But when you give staff the data, especially if the data set involves their name being mentioned, they are now not dependent upon someone else to understand how they need to be able to redevelop their skill sets and to grow. They have the ability to make those decisions themselves. So in the process of doing that, we're bringing the intelligence to the key people in the organization, getting them to understand their roles better, and to skill up and move up the value chain. Now, that doesn't mean there's no room for an external consultant. You can still get an external consultant to bounce ideas off, but you're developing the expertise within the structure of organizations, and I think that's very, very critical. Why? Because there's this whole danger of, will AI replace human beings? Yes, AI will replace human beings who are not using AI to augment their intelligence. But human beings using AI to augment their intelligence are going to be very difficult to replace with an AI directly. So people need to move up the value chain. Okay. So with that, I'll end for now. They're telling me that it's time to get you guys to some food. But that doesn't mean I'm going to run away. Please come along, say hello, introduce yourself, get a name card if you need to, and we can always continue the conversation thereafter. With that, I hope it's been eye-opening for you. I hope it's been valuable on many different fronts. On behalf of the team at Intuitive and the folks at Castro, thank you very much for being here.